In the year 1170, Thomas of Beckett, Archbishop of Canterbury, was murdered in Canterbury Cathedral. For nearly 300 years, the Martyr's Shrine attracted pilgrims from all over the Christian world. The exact course of the Pilgrims Way cannot be traced along the whole 120 miles between Winchester and Canterbury, but the old road can still be followed at many places. Winchester was the pilgrims' main assembly point because those coming from the west of England were joined there by many from the continent who had disembarked at Southampton. Let's now look at some of the towns and country scenery through which the pilgrims passed. Many pilgrims must have landed at Southampton, and today all the world's largest liners call there. This is the Royal Mail Line's flagship Andes, the largest British liner sailing to South America. And here's the Queen Elizabeth, just in from New York, carrying some 2,000 tourists. The United States Line's flagship, America, also links us with the New World. For very many years, Southampton has been one of the England's principal harbours, and much evidence can still be seen of its importance in earlier centuries. Henry VIII is believed to have presented this old cannon to the town, and this is the house he stayed in when he visited Southampton with Anne Boleyn. King Philip of Spain also stayed here on his arrival in England to marry Henry VIII's daughter Mary. Through this gateway, Henry V led his troops to embark for France and Agincourt. It was at Southampton that the Mayflower was fitted out, and this monument has been placed close to the spot from which the Pilgrim Fathers sailed in 1620. But it is the Canterbury pilgrims whom we must now follow. So let's look at the countryside through which they passed before arriving at Winchester. This lovely stretch of country has been known as the New Forest for over 900 years, ever since William the Conqueror declared it a royal hunting preserve. Near this spot, King William II, known as William Rufus, was accidentally killed by an arrow in the year 1100. One cannot go far in the forest without meeting the delightful New Forest ponies, wandering unconcernedly over the commons and along the roads. They even trot through the main streets of the small towns like Lyndhurst and Brockenhurst. Aha, I'm sure you oughtn't to be standing in the middle of the road. Off you go, after your mother. But didn't she tell you to keep to the left of the road? Oh dear. You see what I mean? But on now to the busy main street of Winchester, probably just about the oldest high street in England, for Winchester was originally a Celtic stronghold. It was taken over by the early Roman conquerors and became an important centre of communications. King Alfred made it his capital in 871, and it was he who founded the great abbey, forerunner of the present cathedral, which was built in William the Conqueror's reign. In 1107, the central tower fell down because, people said, William Rufus, who had been an enemy of the church, was buried underneath it. It was then replaced by the present tower. Later, much rebuilding was carried out by the celebrated William of Wykeham, founder of Winchester College. Fine example of modern stained glass, this window commemorated the coronation of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. And so we come out into the lovely cathedral precincts, where green lawns and ancient trees are surrounded by buildings which have seen centuries of English history pass in review. Close by runs the little river Itchen, and it was along the valley of this river that the pilgrims started on their long journey to Canterbury. After passing through the undulating Hampshire countryside, the Pilgrims Way enters Surry near the old town of Farnham. It then goes due east until it reaches the River Way just south of Guildford. The pilgrims were probably ferried across the river at a point. They then cross the meadows on the far side to the southern slopes of the hills beyond. If we look back as we cross these meadows today, we see on the skyline the ruins of the ancient chapel of St. Catherine, where countless pilgrims must have worshipped. A mile away to the north stands the Norman keep of Guildford Castle, picturesquely poised above the river. Nearby is Guildford's pleasant High Street with its 17th century town hall. The famous clock dates from 1683. But we must go back to the Pilgrims Way as it leaves the neighbourhood of Guildford and climbs up towards the top of St. Martha's Hill. Although it's a stiff climb, it's very well worth following in the pilgrim's footsteps, as there's a wonderful view from the top. St. Martha's Chapel, which stands on the summit, was built 100 years ago to replace an ancient church, which was probably erected on the spot where early Christian martyrs met their deaths. The Martyrs' Chapel has now become St. Martha's. After leaving St. Martha's, the Pilgrim's Way drops down into the lovely Tillingbourne Valley, where it comes soon to the village of Surry, one of the best known and most picturesque villages in Surrey. From Hampshire, the pilgrims followed the southern face of the North Downs across Surrey and eastwards into Kent. Here's a glimpse of the Pilgrims Way just before it turns to the southeast near Maidstone. Did the pilgrims perhaps look something like this as they passed through the beautiful Kentish countryside? And so, at last, the pilgrims saw before them the majestic towers of Canterbury Cathedral rising above the old walled town. Entering the city through the massive west gate, they soon found themselves before the cathedral itself. And so, as the setting sun gilds the grey stonework of the Bell Harry Tower, we come to the end of our journey along the Pilgrim's Way.